Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most terrifying and realistic scenarios modern nations could ever face: a complete collapse of global communication systems, leading to what experts call 48-hour war. Imagine a world where every satellite, every internet connection, every radar signal goes dark. In just a few minutes, the modern world's most critical infrastructure, from banking systems to military networks, is gone. No phones, no internet, no GPS, no command orders, nothing but silence in the digital space. How would the world react? What would happen if no one could talk, coordinate, or even confirm what's real? That's exactly what we're going to explore today. In the first few minutes of a total communication blackout, confusion would spread faster than any missile. Governments would scramble to understand what just happened. Was it a cyberattack, a solar flare, or an act of war? Military command centers that rely on satellite communications would instantly lose touch with their fleets, air bases, and troops in the field. For decades, the backbone of modern warfare has been connectivity, instant data, real-time intelligence, and precision coordination. But take away communication, and the world's strongest armies would suddenly become blind and deaf. Within the first hour, global air traffic would descend into chaos. Thousands of planes flying across continents would lose GPS navigation and contact with air control. Pilots would have to rely on old-fashioned methods, using compass and visual references. Many would have to make emergency landings at the nearest available airports, causing massive congestion and panic on the ground. In cities, people would wake up to find their phones useless, networks dead, and television broadcasts frozen. The digital silence would be unlike anything the modern world has ever experienced. By the second hour, stock markets would crash automatically as automated trading systems fail. Financial networks depend on precise, timed communication. Without data flow, everything halts. Banks close their doors. ATMs stop working. Digital payments collapse. People with cash become the lucky few. Governments try to broadcast emergency messages on analog radio, but even those systems rely partly on satellite timing. Slowly, panic begins to rise. People rush to gas stations, supermarkets, and pharmacies, trying to secure supplies before everything runs out. Meanwhile, military leaders across the world face the hardest decision of their careers. No one can confirm if this blackout is natural or man-made. In the fog of confusion, each side starts to fear the worst, that it's the beginning of an enemy strike. Nuclear command systems, heavily dependent on secure communication channels, become isolated. The line between precaution and provocation blurs dangerously. A single misinterpretation could start a war that no one intended. 6 hours in, the internet, dependent world begins to crumble. Emergency services can't coordinate. Hospitals can't access digital records or communicate with other facilities. Traffic lights fail, security cameras go dark, and power grids become unstable. In many places, generators take over, but fuel supply systems depend on digital logistics too. Slowly, the backbone of modern civilization begins to collapse. Cities that once thrived on constant connectivity are now paralyzed by silence. 12 hours into the blackout, social order starts to break. Rumors spread faster than facts, because facts can no longer travel. People begin to suspect foreign attacks, government conspiracies, or even alien involvement. Without communication, misinformation becomes the new power. Local authorities try to maintain control, but with no coordination or guidance from higher levels, confusion dominates. The world becomes a patchwork of isolated regions, each reacting differently to the crisis. In military zones, things get even more dangerous. Fighter jets are grounded because command centers can't verify friend or foe. Naval fleets drift without orders, their captains forced to make independent decisions. Submarines, especially nuclear ones, are cut off from command. These are some of the most frightening hours of the blackout, because no one knows who might act on instinct or fear or misunderstanding. By the 18-hour mark, energy grids begin to destabilize on a massive scale. Power plants, especially nuclear ones, rely on external communication for monitoring and coordination. With systems offline, some are forced into emergency shutdowns, while others risk overheating. Massive blackouts spread from one region to another. The night sky grows darker than it has in centuries. People look up at the stars, the same satellites that once connected the world, now silent and lifeless. At the 24-hour point, the world has entered full-scale technological collapse. Military forces attempt to establish local analog communication using old radio frequencies, but range and reliability are poor. Leaders can't communicate even within their own countries. The fear of an invisible enemy grows unbearable. Some nations prepare their missile defenses, fearing the worst. Others try to hold back, praying the situation stabilizes. But trust, the most critical element in international stability, is gone. Civilian life deteriorates rapidly. Without communication, transportation stops, ports close, food supplies can't move, farmers, truck drivers, and warehouse operators can't coordinate. Supermarket shelves begin to empty. Hospitals run out of essential supplies. Even water treatment plants, controlled by digital systems, start to fail. Disease risk rises. In some cities, local governments impose curfews, fearing riots and looting. In others, people take to the streets demanding answers, but there are none. As the world enters the 30th hour, the military situation grows more unpredictable. Distant radar stations, unable to confirm friend or foe, start reporting unidentified aircraft. In the panic of isolation, a single misread radar signal could trigger a defensive response. The nightmare scenario of an accidental war becomes very real. Commanders are forced to make decisions without guidance, without confirmation, and without context. This is where the 48-hour war begins, not through aggression but through confusion. By the 36th hour, local skirmishes erupt in several regions. Border patrols, cut off from central command, mistake movement for invasion. Artillery units, seeing flashes in the distance, respond with defensive fire. In the absence of communication, human instinct, fear, confusion, survival takes over. Small incidents begin to escalate. Countries misinterpret silence as hostility. The world teeters on the edge of global war. At 42 hours, some nations succeed in partially restoring shortwave radio communication, enough to send out basic emergency signals. Fragmented messages begin to circulate, partial reports of what happened, theories about a massive cyberattack or satellite network failure. Relief mixes with fear as the truth starts to surface. It wasn't a war that caused the blackout, but a catastrophic chain reaction in the world's communication infrastructure, possibly triggered by a massive solar storm or an accidental systems malfunction. The realization brings both hope and horror. Hope that no one attacked. Horror that something so natural could destroy everything humans built to connect the planet. As the final 6 hours approach, engineers work tirelessly to restore systems. Satellite operators attempt to reboot constellations, data centers try to bring back servers, and emergency power grids are rerouted. Slowly, some lights begin to flicker back on. Radio frequencies start to buzz with life. The first restored internet nodes come online. But the world that reconnects is not the same. In 48 hours of silence, humanity has come face to face with its own vulnerability. When communication finally returns, leaders rush to speak to the world. Messages of calm, unity, and reassurance fill the airwaves. But it's clear that something fundamental has changed. Trust has been shaken. The systems that people thought were unbreakable have been proven fragile. Governments begin urgent meetings to strengthen backup networks, invest in analog systems, and secure infrastructure against future collapse. Experts call it the 48-hour war, not because nations fought each other, but because the collapse of communication nearly triggered conflict on a scale never seen before. In those 2 days, the world learned how dependent it has become on invisible systems and how quickly civilization can fall apart without them. The blackout leaves a lasting mark. People begin to value local connections again. Analog radios sell out. Schools teach students how to navigate without GPS. Emergency drills include communication blackout scenarios. The event becomes a global warning, a reminder that technology, no matter how advanced, is never infallible. Governments establish new communication protocols, building layers of redundancy into every network. But satellites, high-altitude balloons, and undersea cables are redesigned to withstand solar and cyber threats. Nations also sign new agreements to prevent miscommunication from leading to war during future outages. The memory of those 48 hours becomes part of modern history, a chapter of silence that nearly ended civilization as we know it. But amid the fear and chaos, there's also a lesson in resilience. Communities that helped each other, shared resources, and stayed calm managed to survive better than those that panicked. Humanity rediscovered something ancient, the power of cooperation beyond technology. In the end, the 48-hour war reminds us that the strongest connection isn't digital, it's human. If this scenario ever truly happened, it would test everything we depend on: trust, communication, and leadership. It's not about missiles or tanks, but about information. The next great war may not begin with explosions, but with silence. And surviving, it would depend not on machines, but on our ability to stay united when the world goes dark. So, as we think about the future, one thing becomes clear. Our greatest vulnerability isn't in our weapons or defenses. It's in our networks. The systems that link us together are the same ones that could tear us apart if they ever fail. That's why understanding and preparing for a communication collapse isn't just a military concern. It's a human one. The 48-hour war might sound like fiction, but experts warn it's more plausible than most people think. The more connected we become, the greater the risk of a single failure bringing everything down. And if that day ever comes, how we respond calmly, intelligently, and together will decide whether it becomes the end of an era or the beginning of a stronger one. Thank you for watching. If you found this thought provoking, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the realities of modern conflict and global security. Stay safe. Stay aware, and remember, communication isn't just a technology. It's the heartbeat of civilization.